What's the most mysterious thing happened in your life that you can't find any explanation for? My mum is a type 1 diabetic, has been since she was 11 years of age. When me and my little brother were very young, I was about 7 and he was 5, I came into my mum's room to find she was acting extremely strange. She looked almost drunk, and wasn't really responsive. I went to pick up her insulin needles to see if she would react to that and she didn't. So I panicked and phoned my nan, who told me to put the phone down and dial 999. For some reason I was so frightened and confused I didn't. And sent my little brother outside to get help while I tried to get my mum to respond to me. My brother came back in crying, saying he couldn't find anyone, and then about 5 minutes later this woman just walked into my mum's bedroom, called me by my name, and my brother's, said she knew my mum and help is coming. She was calm, soft-spoken and had a warm feeling about her. I didn't recognize this woman and neither did my brother. Shortly after, the ambulance arrived and got my mum's sugar levels back up. And when I went to find the woman, she was gone. Like literally gone. When my mum came round, I explained to her about this mysterious woman and what she looked like. And my mum had absolutely no idea who she was, and we never saw her again. If she didn't help us, my mum would have died eventually. Still gives me shivers now. When I was around 18, a friend and me were traveling in Europe. We were walking along a pleasant, quiet street in Rome one day and saw an elderly homeless man sitting on the street. He said to us if he could guess our date of birth, could we give him some money? Of course we said okay. He did it. He told us both our correct dates of birth. Never met him before and never saw him again. When I was a kid, I participated in Big Brothers Big Sisters, which, if you don't know what that is, it's pretty much just a mentorship program in the US. I basically just hung out with this dude Chris for a couple hours a week. We'd go to the movies, out to eat, he'd help me with my homework, that kinda thing. One day, he tells me that he's going to Baltimore for a couple weeks and when I should expect him back. The day rolls around and I give him a call to see if he's back yet. A man whose voice I didn't recognize answered and I asked if Chris was there. He said no. I asked him when Chris would be back, just kinda thinking it was someone staying at his house or watching his dogs or something. But he said that I had the wrong number, that he and his wife had lived there for years. And there was never a Chris there. I double-checked in the phone book to see if it was the right number, which it was because I had it circled. I was confused, so I just said sorry and hung up, and I never heard from Chris ever again. When I was 10 or so, I was staying at my grandma's over the summer break and we were having breakfast. We barely started eating when the phone rang. She left the dining room and I followed her, thinking that maybe they were my parents calling. When we returned, most of the food was gone. She asked me if I ate while she was on the phone and I said no. There was no one else home and there were no pets. My grandma just shook it off, saying we might have eaten more than she remembered, but I am absolutely positive that I had at most 2 bites of my toast by the time the phone rang. I was at my mother-in-law's flat in Hungary. For your information, I don't speak Hungarian, so I couldn't be aware of any of this. I tend to go to bed later than my wife, and for the first couple of nights, I had trouble falling asleep because around midnight I could hear the neighbor upstairs. It's an old block of flats made under the communist era, walls are incredibly thin, walk in high heels, which was very annoying. I could also hear little objects fall on the floor, and I told my wife it sounded like the plastic buttons you have on some clothes. She looked at me funny and told me her niece hated to sleep in that room because she was scared by the noises coming from upstairs. I said that was a bit exaggerated, and I thought it was until my wife told me the flat upstairs had been empty for the past at least 4 years. Neighbor died years before that, and guess what? She was a tailor, always nicely dressed and wearing high heels. Every month around the 5th I get a letter with exactly $23. No note, no return address. I've asked family, relatives, friends, the 2 past occupants of this apartment, Nobody knows anything about it. It is not addressed to me, but to my unique postal address. The total is now exactly 1886, I have just stashed it all in a box. I do not want to spend it in case it is cursed. My grandmother always loved roses and had them growing in her backyard. She died in December, and when we were gathered at her house for the funeral, my father happened to look out the back window and saw a bright red rose had blossomed. It stood out brightly against the snow. He brought it in and put it in a vase on the kitchen table. We all left for the funeral, and when we came back the rose was on the living room floor. No one had been in the house while we were gone. My father is the most hard-headed person alive, but he was convinced it was his mother's way of telling him she was all right. My neighbor died soon after he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. We had studio apartments with a shared wall. We were pals, but he always complained that my television was too loud. No issues. I would turn the volume down whenever he asked. The day after he died, I flipped on my TV. The volume control on the TV screen popped up and it appeared like someone was pressing the button to lower the sound. I wasn't touching the remote. I tried 2 or 3 times to increase the volume and again the sound decreased by itself. This had never happened before or since then. I wasn't scared or surprised. It's like my neighbor was wishing me goodbye. We have a built-in wardrobe in our bedroom. About a month ago our cat had managed to get herself inside and I must have closed the door. I heard her meowing and I opened the door and she jumped out and walked off. Silly cat. I closed the wardrobe door. Less than 5 minutes later I hear a meow in the wardrobe. I open the door and to my surprise, our cat jumps out again and walks off. My partner and I were both stunned as there is no way into the wardrobe with the doors closed. Neither of us have any idea how this happened. TLDR, glitch in the matrix and our cat jumps out of our wardrobe twice. I had just picked up a co-worker from her house heading to work. We are just talking and chatting, how'd your weekend go type of stuff. We are maybe 5 miles away from her house, when all of a sudden, we realize we are in town pulling into work's parking lot. We both kidney look at each other, not sure what happened. We had gone near 20 miles in a blink of an eye. And what cemented this experience as something that actually happened, and not just simply losing track of time, is the time. It should have taken us almost half an hour to get to work. Instead, the time from when I picked her up was 2:30. And the time when we got to the building was 2:40. There is no way in hell we could have gotten there that fast. From that point on we both called that experience the time when we jumped, like from the movie Jumper. I have no explanation why. I'll also state, I don't believe in the paranormal or supernatural. So this experience is one of those things that makes me question my own sanity. Every Sunday for years I would go down to the beach and do the traveling rings in Santa Monica. Huge friend group down there. I pretty much know everyone in the community. So basically all day long I cycle doing the rings and sitting on the wall and playing my guitar. One evening a bunch of the crew was going to get something to eat. I was gonna catch a ride with a friend of mine who's also a musician. He wasn't ready to go yet, so I sat on the wall and played my guitar while I waited for him. Out of nowhere this homeless dude shuffles up carrying a big gulp full of booze, drunk as fuck, etc. Seriously, one of the most fucked up dirty down and out people I have ever seen. Him, I know you're probably gonna say no. But would you let me play your guitar for a minute? Now, just to be clear, I never let anyone play my guitar, not even people that I know and trust who are musicians. I'm very protective of my things. But there was something about this guy. I couldn't quite explain it. Something told me to let him play. So I said fuck it, and handed him my guitar. He started playing this fingered-style cover of a Smashing Pumpkins song that was so fucking good it made the hair on my arms and neck stand up. Then he started to sing, again, amazing voice. I was blown away. So I started softly singing along with him until he finished the song. Him, you know that song? Me, yeah man, it's a great song. Your cover is amazing though. That was awesome. Do you have any original songs? Him, yeah? Sure. So he starts playing this beautiful song, fingered style again, so melodic and sad. Again my hair stood on end. He started singing and it was just mind-blowing, so beautiful, one of the saddest most beautiful songs I've ever heard. Then halfway through he got overwhelmed with emotion, choked up and stopped playing for a second, wiped tears away, then went back to playing and finished the song. Me, holy shit dude, that was amazing. Him, sorry about that, apologizing for the moment where he got choked up. Me, nah, it's all good man. Him, it's far from it. Then he handed me back my guitar, picked up his big gulp of booze and shuffled away. I've been going to the same beach, same spot, for years and haven't seen that guy since. I have no idea who he was or where he went. I was about 13 to 14 and I was working on something downstairs in the family room at my parents' house. I was using some electrical tape and set it down beside me while I put a piece on my project. Next thing I know, I heard super loud thud from the wall next to me. I looked over and the tape I had been using was sitting there, almost like it had been thrown. I never got out of that basement quicker. One time when I was around 13 to 14, me and my cousins were downstairs playing on our mini hoop when we heard a deep, scratchy voice yell, "Who's down there?" We had a nice, new, big house with a security system that chimes when doors and windows are opened and an outside dog that barks at everything. No way anyone just slipped inside in broad daylight. Even if it was an intruder, why would they just yell down and leave without taking anything? Day after my dog died I booted up Skyrim. There is a random % encounter where a companion animal can find you. Never happened before in all my time playing, but it did this time. A stray dog found me, cried. I used to work security for a secured building. I worked at night and there were only 3 doors in the entire building but only one used on a regular basis, other 2 magnetically locked. I'm not one of those people who believe in ghosts or whatever, but I kept hearing what sounded like somebody moving heavy objects around in the building when there shouldn't be other people there and I had already checked and secured the building. I'd hear the sounds often enough that I stopped checking because I wouldn't ever find anything. Then one night the officer above me, guy in charge of security of that building and a few others, was doing his rounds and came to check I was at my post. In the middle of talking to him and reporting that the building had been cleared and checked every hour for the past nearly 6 hours, we hear the noise. He asked why I reported the building clear if somebody is there, and I told him the sound happens regularly and it must be an vac thing or something. Then we clearly hear somebody yell fuck and the sound stops abruptly. We both checked that build floor to ceiling and nobody was there. We checked closets and under desks and nothing. He made me call in the day security team and tell them we had a breach for them to not be able to find anybody either. Now this is a big deal because the information in the building was very sensitive and nobody was allowed to leave until we found the person. TL, doctor, I was security and a ghost screamed profanity. When I was a kid 6 to 7 I was young. I was swimming in my grandma's pool and seeing how long I could hold my breath underwater. I stayed under too long at one point and scrambled for the surface. I remember fear, I remember my lungs burning, I remember seeing the water surface a few inches above me. My vision went black but I didn't pass out, I breached the water surface and finally got oxygen. But in the seconds when my vision went black and I surfaced I had, it's hard to describe, a vision like an old memory but not of anything I had done. It was so vivid that after 30 plus years I still remember every detail. It was a vision, memory of a child's hand, my point of view, making an orange-red clay pot and there were adult hands helping with the clay. It was like a picture in time. It's hard to explain, but it felt like a memory of a past life. Even as a kid I was like, what the hell was that? That wasn't my memory, that wasn't my experience. I've never told anyone that ever.